ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਚ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕੋ-ਹੋਸਟ ਜਸਮੀਤ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਇਨਫਰਟੀਲਿਟੀ ਬਾਰੇ। ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਆ ਜੋ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਆਦਮੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਤੇ ਔਰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਕਰਦਾ ਆ। ਪਰ ਅਕਸਰ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਇੱਕ ਕਪਲ ਚੈਲੰਜਸ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਟੂ ਕਨਸੀਵ ਅ ਚਾਈਲਡ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਸੂਰ ਆ ਉਹ ਯੂਜੂਅਲੀ ਸੋਸਾਇਟੀ ਫੀਮੇਲ ਤੇ ਪਾਉਂਦੀ ਆ। ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਆ, ਇਹ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਬੇਬੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਕਿਹੜੇ societal pressures ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜੋ couples experience ਕਰਦੇ ਆ if they are going through challenges with infertility। ਐਂਡ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਕਰਨਗੇ related to her experience with this topic। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ challenges experience ਕੀਤੇ and as a society ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੋਚ ਬਦਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ about infertility in the South Asian community।
ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਮਨੀਤ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਐਂਡ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਜਸਮੀਤ ਨੇ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਇਨਫਰਟੀਲਿਟੀ ਐਂਡ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਹੈਲਥ ਕਾਫੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਇਨ ਆਰ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ। ਜਦੋਂ ਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ we get a lot of messages related with infertility, miscarriages, pressure on women on conceiving children and more so although ਇਹ issue couples ਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, families ਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਜਸਮੀਤ ਨੇ mention ਕੀਤਾ a lot of focus goes on the women and I think that's a bigger issue on apna South Asian culture kiਵੇਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, how we view roles, who we put blame towards। So ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਤੇ welcome ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ Sonia Jess, who has been such a big supporter with SOCH and on her platform as a health and fitness expert and health and wellness expert, she is shedding light on so many important issues with infertility being one of them. So Sonia, thank you so much for joining us. And if you can please give our viewers a brief introduction about yourself, that would be great for us to know more.
Thank you so much for having me as always. It's so fantastic to support anything that you ladies do because I mean you really are showing the South Asian community how to come out behind those curtains and really be brave and have the conversations, and you're really sort of setting the stage for I think the future generation, and I think what you're doing is amazing. So thank you so much for having me. As you said, I guess I'm a health and wellness expert, which is a really strange thing, I guess, for an Indian girl because, you know, I was born and raised to be a good Indian girl with very long hair, working as an executive at IBM. I did my MBA, I did my BCom, I started my career off on a very sort of traditional path. Married a neurosurgeon, ended up with a lovely home, crossed off all the ticky marks that I needed to be deemed successful. And then sort of got to a stage in my life where I realized I wasn't happy and that I really just didn't feel passionate or fulfilled by what I was doing. And so to make a long story short, I decided to focus on health and wellness as sort of the entrepreneurial phase of my career because I felt like a lot of people were coming at the journey from a really sort of negative place. There was a lot of sort of discomfort and frustration and negativity around the how do I get skinny journey that people were on. And through conquering my own challenges, you know, eating disorders and body image issues and a whole slew of things, I felt like I'd really sort of gained insight into how I can help people in the context of both mindset and body. And so I ventured into the space about, I guess it's almost been like 10 years. And it has been a beautiful evolution where I have, you know, sort of started with the fitness and nutrition side of things and slowly evolved more and more into the media space, shedding light on important topics, like you said, around fertility and authenticity and just finding ways to be the best, most authentic, aligned version of you. And so this infertility topic is a really sort of important one for me because, as you know, I've gone through my own sort of challenges twice because I do have 2 children. And being a South Asian, it was a really unique experience for me, both the first time and the second time, which were actually quite different, but we can get into that as we go forward.
Yeah, I think ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ, I really appreciate like on your focus ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ health and wellness ਕਰਦੇ ਆ. You talked about the mind and the body, right? Because mainly ਆਪਾਂ fitness ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, everyone focuses on the body, and even in mental health ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਬਿਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ we forget the mind. So, you already mentioned, and I think that's why ਅਸੀਂ Sonu ਅੱਜ contact ਕੀਤਾ to come on as a guest, because on your platform ਤੁਸੀਂ fertility, ਆਪਦੀ fertility journey ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ, and with that comes a lot of mental health concerns, stressors and challenges. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ viewers ਲਈ ਥੋੜਾ ਬਹੁਤਾ ਆਪਦੇ journey ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, and share what kind of mental health issues can come up when someone is going through that?
For sure. It's interesting. We all sort of think that we are going to again, achieve all of these magical ticky marks. And then when it comes to the perfect time to get pregnant, we will then snap our fingers, get pregnant within a month, and just sort of have this magical plan unfold. And I don't know if it's the Bollywood influence where we've just been taught to think that magical things happen without much struggle. But I will say that I was one of those people that also felt like, I've got this master plan and this perfect timeline. And if I can just follow along with that agenda, there we go. My life will just stay in this sort of even keel, no drama sort of way. And of course, that didn't happen. When it came to getting pregnant with my first child, my husband and I tried for about, I'd say, 6 to 9 months before I was like, honestly, like something doesn't feel right. And it wasn't just because I wasn't getting pregnant. I was sort of experiencing a lot of indicators that my body wasn't functioning the way it was supposed to leading up to that. But I was sort of hopeful that like, okay, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe it is. Maybe I can work around it. And so I think after giving it 6 to 9 months and sort of taking a look at the symptoms that I was experiencing, I sort of became very honest with myself that it's probably best for me to get a professional into the driver's seat, because when you're sort of a type A individual and you like to plan and master the art of doing anything you put your mind to, you become a professional based on Google. So, you know what I mean? You Google and Google and Google until you think you know everything, and you've tried everything and you've troubleshooted as much as you can until you get to the place where you're like, I need to give the sort of control over to somebody who isn't me or my husband. Somebody else needs to be in this with me so that I can get the help that I need from a medical standpoint. And that was sort of the first, I think, step that I had to take that felt scary and challenging, particularly as a South Asian woman, because I had never heard of anybody going to a fertility clinic before. You loosely hear about people like struggling to conceive, and then at some point in time they have a baby, but you don't know what happens in that 10-year period where your mom is not feeding you the gossip. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't know what goes on. And then somehow they have a baby and you're like, I guess it worked out.
Yeah.
But even, I will say, taking that step to acknowledge that I needed to go down the fertility route felt scary. And it was something that I didn't talk to my parents about because I just didn't want to sound the alarms. I didn't want to make it a whole sort of Kanban issue where everybody's like, on it then and tracking with me and understanding what's happening at the doctor's appointments. And it just becomes a whole high situation the whole time. And you're like, you're trying to contain your own emotions and your own fears and also just sort of stay rational and practical through the process. And carrying the weight of your entire family on your shoulders can often feel like it's a challenge. And so the first time that I did get pregnant through a fertility clinic, I will say that I was quite isolated on that journey. I wasn't really communicating with my family too much about it. One of my close girlfriends knew about what I was doing. In fact, only one of my close girlfriends knew about what was going on because, again, I think I just felt like as a health and wellness expert, I was expected to have all this sort of insight and understanding on how to have your body function at its max capacity. And I don't know, I felt a bit guilty. I felt a bit like a fraud. I felt like maybe I really don't know what I'm talking about. And again, I just felt really sort of alone because there were no examples of anybody else out there, both South Asian and not, who were going through this sort of thing. And it just felt risky somehow. It felt taboo. It felt like the stuff that you're just not supposed to share because you're being too open or you're being too casual about it. And also, in a way, I think at the time, especially the first time around, the idea of nazar and this idea that the more eyeballs you have involved in your fertility journey or frankly in your life at all is only going to bring sort of like negativity and evil into your life. And so therefore, just sort of hold your breath, keep your mouth shut, put your head down, do your thing. And when you have the baby and it's healthy and alive and everybody's in the clear, then sure, we can talk about it or not talk about it. But at that point, who's even going to want to talk about it? Because whatever, you have a baby then and you're happy. Yeah. And so the first pregnancy that I had was it was hard. It was really hard. And for my husband and I, it was challenging too, because he had no idea what I was going through. I had no idea really what I was going through, to be honest, because when you're so results driven, you're just kind of like, okay, I will just put my head down and get to the finish line and then deal with the emotional stuff later if I need to or not. But you're kind of like clinging on to hope, moving forward every step of the way, not really going into the narrative of, is this scary? Is this hard? I mean, for most women who are dealing with fertility issues, there is a significant amount of hormonal support that you get through external hormones that they give you via injections, via pills. You are really pumping your body up with a lot of additional stuff. And that can also further take, the natural feelings that you have and the emotions and the mental health challenges that you're going through and really exacerbate them as well, because now you're, again, fully charged with progesterone and estrogen. And for anybody who knows what it's like to be a woman, it's pretty hard once a month anyway to go through hormonal fluctuations, let alone, sort of really going through it to that degree. And so there's a lot of volatility for any partnership to be able to handle, even the most stable of marriages. It's difficult to feel like there's really sort of someone in it with you when, as you said, the burden does fall primarily on the woman, both from a societal standpoint, but also from like a physical standpoint, right? You are the one going for the, cycle monitoring and checking 7 days a week at 6 o'clock in the morning before you go to work. You are the one taking the pills, doing the injections, all that sort of stuff. And it is really difficult to be able to translate that for anybody around the pressure and the sort of experiences around fear that you have the whole way through.
Yeah. I think up until now, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ share ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, a lot of people can probably resonate with that. Because ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ topic ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ. So when we don't talk about something, it becomes highly stigmatized, highly taboo. And then ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ isolated feel ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਿਰਫ ਮੈਂ ਹੀ ਇੱਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਜੋ ਇਸ issue ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੁਜ਼ਰ ਰਹੀ ਆ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ guilty feel ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ashamed feel ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਸਿਹਤ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ pressure ਪੈ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ. And I really like ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਖਾਨਦਾਨ issue ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ, because ਅਕਸਰ, South Asian families ਇਕੱਠੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ. And ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ still ਆਪਣੇ in-laws, ਆਪਣੇ family ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ, sometimes, of course, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ family, depend ਕਰਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, but ਉਹ pressure ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ. Phone call ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਕੋਈ ਆ ਜਾ, they physically show up at your house, ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛਣ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ. And I think ਉਹ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, in our community as well. ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ single ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਫਿਰ ਲੋਕ ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਦੋਂ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ, ਮੁੰਡਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਭਿਆ, ਕੁੜੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਭੀ, ਫਿਰ ਜਦ ਵਿਆਹ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ, ਫਿਰ ਲੋਕ ਪੁੱਛਣ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਬੇਬੀ ਕਦੋਂ ਹੋਣਾ, ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ. And then ਅਸੀਂ realize ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਪਤਾ, maybe this couple is having challenges with fertility. And ਜਦ ਅਸੀਂ, sometimes, I don't know, like ਜਦ ਲੋਕ ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਆ, maybe they're just curious. Obviously, some people just do it for gossip, but maybe ਲੋਕ generally curious ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿ, ਕਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, baby ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ. ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਕਿ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਟੋਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ who knows what is going on in that other person's life. So I think ਇਹ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ important message ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਸਾਡੇ viewers ਲਈ ਕਿ in fact ਕਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕਦੋਂ ਬੇਬੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ and then ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ advice ਵੀ ਦੇਣ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ. So I think there's so many layers to unpack with this, but I think everything that you've said until now, it definitely will probably resonate with a lot of people.
I think you're so right. It's difficult, and I will say though that I feel like aunties and uncles are starting to get it now. I think with their own children experiencing their own challenges, right? Like, I think it's easy for, the way we used to do things to work until your own children start to experience issues, whether it's that they're having difficulties in their marriage, whether it's that now people are starting to get divorced, whether it's that our generation is struggling to conceive. I think the more that people are experiencing the realities of life here for us in our generation, and or their friends' kids, or anybody in that social circle that's being honest enough. There are always at least a few aunties that are open and honest enough with each other that they're sharing what's really going on. And I think the more that sort of happens, and the more that there is that awareness and that compassion and understanding, the more that this sort of typical questioning and probing will probably go away. And I don't think that anyone's doing it out of malice intent. Like, I don't think that anyone's trying to be deliberately hurtful. It's just they're modeling what they saw growing up. And of course, everybody wants everyone to get married and have kids and all those sorts of things. Once upon a time, these pieces of our lives used to be really straightforward in different ways, and it seems like they're becoming less and less straightforward. But what I will say is that, when I talk about the fact that I've gone through this twice, and that the experiences were very different, the second time around, I was very open about the whole journey. I sort of decided right off the bat that I was going to include my social media network into the conversation, not necessarily because I felt obligated, but more because I knew that there was a responsibility to start the conversation. And it can be really easy when you follow somebody on social media who has a larger following, or who's just like everybody else, posting only good things, etc., to just have this idea that everybody has a really sort of even, smooth, blessed life. And I felt like there was truly just this inability to sit with myself, knowing that there was a really specific contrast between my real life, which was I'm waking up every morning, I'm going to the clinic, I'm doing 5 injections a day, I'm crying on the sofa even though nothing happened other than a cute little peanut butter commercial came on TV. I'm having ups and downs with my husband, I'm trying to raise a kid at the same time, but then on social media I'm like, you should drink more water, life is amazing. And I think for me, that lack of authenticity felt really undigestible. And bringing up the conversation, I will say, was one of the best things I ever chose to do, particularly with the South Asian audience that follows me, because I can't tell you how many messages I received and continue to receive years later, when I've had my second child, when I'm comfortably postpartum, when it's not something I talk about regularly anymore, because I'm not trying to become an infertility resource page specifically. So while I'm always available to speak about it, it's not the primary content of what it is that I share. But even now, every week, I will get at least 10 to 15 messages from South Asian women all across the world, not even just here in Canada, from India, from the States, from all around, wanting to share and talk and ask and communicate. And honestly, sometimes they're not even looking for advice or help. Most of the time, to be honest, they just want to thank me for opening up the dialogue and for making it a safe space to speak. And they just want to share. They just want to tell me what they've been going through, if maybe I went through something similar, and what did I do to handle the emotional stress of it all. Nobody's looking for advice around, oh, do you have a better doctor? What treatments did you do? Or did you eat certain foods to help your womb work better? Nobody's really interested in that sort of thing. It's all around the mental health piece. How do I get the support that I need from my partner? That's a huge question. How do I find ways to keep up with self-care so that I don't feel like I'm moments away from drowning while I'm trying to have a baby? How do I manage my family and have the conversation with them, because I live with my in-laws, and you know, I don't want this to become something that we talk about all the time, but I feel bad lying. There's a lot of sort of questions that people have around the mental health piece that I feel really grateful to participate in the conversation with now, because I think, you know, people are just looking for someone to talk to. At the end of the day, they just want to know that they're not alone, that they're not damaged, that their experience that they're going through is not so unique to them that they're going to have to reinvent the wheel and find some new solution to have a baby and stay happy in their life while they're trying to have a baby. Because for a lot of people, this takes a long time. I was lucky with my first child that, you know, it really only took a few months of treatment to get pregnant. But the second time around, it took a whole year. And a whole year, particularly when it's the first time and you're really concerned about if you're ever going to have a child and you're ever going to become a mother. And what if you are going to be permanently damaged? And what will that mean for your marriage? And what will that mean for your in-laws? And what happens if you and your husband fundamentally cannot have kids? Those are the scariest questions a woman can ask herself, particularly when you're South Asian, because we've been raised to believe that bearing children is our duty.
Yeah.
It's our duty to our husband, it's our duty to ourselves, it's our duty to our family and our in-laws. It is a part of our role. And when you can't satisfy that role and that fear is sort of all consuming, it can be so hard to feel normal, to feel moments of happiness and joy through the process, to feel comfort and hope. I think there's a lot to be said for the dialogues that you ladies have opened up and the resources and the tools that you share to really allow avenues and different options and different sources to be potential ways that people can get support, because there is never going to be one solution for each person during this journey. They're going to need something different. But at least exposing people to the options and the varieties of support that they can get, I think is amazing, which is why I think what you ladies are doing is so amazing.
Yeah, ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ, I think even through ਸਾਡੇ work ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ storytelling is so powerful. ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ groups hold ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, when one person shares their story, ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾ feeling ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ. I think this idea of loneliness, and honestly, the stats are out there, like loneliness is one of the like most dangerous things for people's mental health. It increases your, you know, risk of death. Like people die of loneliness, right? Andar hi andar sanu eh cheez khai jandi hai. And you know, when you talk about trying to conceive a child and going through that process, they tell you not to stress, right? Like don't stress na karo, your body has to be relaxed. But how are you going to be relaxed if you're facing pressures, you know, trying to manage your relationship with your marriage? Because like you said, what does that mean? If you're living with family, you know, family is always asking, whether intentionally or not intentionally, but even like how they ask, like, "Kon baby nahi lena?" Like it's like something that you're not doing, right? And we didn't even get into miscarriages in this conversation. Miscarriages are very common. When we've done workshops on postpartum depression, a lot of people, that has sparked the conversation with miscarriages and mental health and all of that. But I mean, there's so much to talk about, and today being more of an intro conversation, you know, you mentioned a few things in terms of coping with mental health during this time. To kind of, you know, ਸਾਡੇ viewers ਲਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ watch ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ, if you can answer maybe even 2 or the 3 questions you mentioned, right? You know, how do you cope with this in your relationship? Just like other partners and all, how can you have support? how do you manage the pressure with the in-laws? Like if those two, and if there's anything else that you want to add, because a message Apni community li hegia, like how we need to change our soch about this.
Totally. I think one of the biggest pieces that links all of these questions together is communication. And it's so annoying because you're just like, communicate more. Like, what does that even mean? It sounds so cliche and so top level that I get that it doesn't feel like practical advice. But one of the things that I will say from experience personally is that communication with yourself, with your partner, with your in-laws, however it needs to be done, is probably the only thing that can truly change the quality of your experience while you're going through something as difficult as infertility. A lot of times we expect our partners to know how to show up for us. A lot of times we expect our partners to be able to naturally have the compassion and empathy that we need them to have because, like, well, why wouldn't they? And why wouldn't they know? And of course, if they loved us, they would understand how hard this is. And it's very easy to be sitting on one side of the equation expecting something from someone. And this goes in the context of marriage across the board, whether you're dealing with infertility or not. And it's, as somebody who's been married for over 10 years now, it is one of the longest learning lessons of my life, that this idea that we can sort of expect and then be disappointed by those expectations not being met, but never have the courage to actually ask for what we need, is a major source of conflict and that passive aggressive tension that we've all experienced in our relationships, because it's just the way humans operate. And so communication, I think, is the biggest piece of it. But in order to be able to communicate and ask for what it is that you need, whether it's from your husband, whether it's from your in-laws, whether it's from, you know, your friends or anybody else, you actually need to be connected enough to yourself to know, what do you want and what do you need and what could be helpful? And I know that South Asians don't like to hear this, because the idea of therapy just sounds so taboo. And if you are seeing a therapist, then maybe you must be psychologically damaged. But you have to find somebody to be truly open and honest with in its rawest sense, in its unpackaged sense, in a way that somebody can help you process the emotions as you're going through them without you having to worry about their share of the game, what this will mean for their family, what this will mean for their image. No vested interest whatsoever. Somebody who's truly neutral, who can help you process life. And frankly, I think that everybody should have a therapist just across the board in life, like from the age of probably 10 onwards, or probably even earlier, I don't know. But I do believe that having somebody in your corner who gets to know you and is there to help you process experiences that are truly unique, that you've never gone through before, that are hard and challenging, and that there are no black and white answers for, is a really unbelievably helpful way of giving you the clarity and insight and self-love and self-compassion that you need to then have the courage to ask for what it is that you need from those around you, but also to be truly not alone in the process. And not everybody has the financial means to be able to afford a therapist, but there are community groups, there are online groups, there are a lot of free tools and resources that are available in this amazing internet world that we've created that can give you, again, that sort of ongoing support based on dialogue and communication that can help you navigate and process your own thoughts, because it's difficult otherwise. If you're not taking the time to feel what's actually happening, you're having expectations for those around you, they're not rising to the occasion because they don't get it, because they're not going through it, you're feeling further isolated. It's just a constant circle then, right? Where you feel worse, they feel worse, you feel worse, they feel worse, and suddenly everything feels helpless and everything feels it's falling apart, right? I know so many couples who are trying to conceive and also feel like they're on the verge of divorce at the same time. And you're like, look at that contrast. You're trying to have someone's baby, and you also think you want to leave the marriage because your husband is not showing up for you the way you need him to, and because you guys are no longer happy anymore and you don't remember what it's like to be happy. And that's a really difficult pendulum to be on, right? That's a challenging place to be. And so it sounds difficult and it's a bit unfair to say, but the onus is on you who are going through the actual journey, who are going through the infertility treatments. It sucks that it's for the woman, but it is on the woman to also have the courage to seek the help that they need from a communication standpoint, to then be able to lead the discussion with others and to have the courage to do that. I mean, one of the things that I found in the second time around, when I was being open and honest with everybody about my journey, is that the more I talked, the less it was a high matter. Like the more I was like, I have to leave the dinner party for 5 seconds to go to the washroom because I just need to inject myself and I might need someone to help me. And, you know, everybody's just like, oh, okay, sure, yeah. And then suddenly they want to ask, and suddenly they want to say something. And then suddenly somebody's talking about the fact that they just had 4 miscarriages. It's just a gateway to people feeling connected. And if you can have the courage to stand in your truth and where you're at and share that, you will not only be doing a service to those around you, but you will feel like you are not alone and that you're not broken, and that the more you share and ask from those around you, the more you will get what you need. But it's terrible to say, it does start with you, the person who is going through the difficult journey. And it's hard because it's like you're already going through so much, and now you need to have courage, and now you need to be able to step into your truth, and now you need to be able to have difficult conversations. But if you want to do it in a way that this process is not going to eat your soul, then that's the only way through. And it will change the way you handle life forever after that in the best way possible. So it is a challenging journey, but the rewards, of course, are a beautiful baby, but also a very different mindset and approach to how you handle your life going forward. And it will serve you tremendously. And to the in-laws and the parents and the husbands, like, show up. Just show up, even if you don't know how to show up. Ask how they're doing. Ask how the appointments are going. Tell them it's going to be okay. Lie. Absolutely lie. Give people hope even though it doesn't feel natural. Give women hope even though you're scared yourself. As in-laws, the best thing you can do is tell your daughter-in-law that it doesn't matter if she has a child or not. That she'll be loved regardless, that she'll be a member of the family regardless. I think that's like the most freeing thing that any mother-in-law could do for their daughter, to say, you know, you are a member of the family, and of course we want to have grandchildren, but that there's no pressure, and, you know, we're here to support you along the way. And then be there to support mother-in-law to daughter-in-law, woman to woman, right? Like, I think that's something we also forget as South Asians, because there is this idea of mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws and all that sort of typical relationship. But we are all just women who have gone through messy things in our lives, whether it's fertility or something else. And I think if we can just meet at that human level and break down that barrier around roles, it would be a much easier process for all of these daughter-in-laws who are trying to conceive and are having a really hard time. So just be nice if you can.
No, definitely. ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ information share ਕੀਤੀ, especially this last part, I think ਸਾਡੇ viewers ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ valuable information ਹੈਗੀ ਆ। And ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮਨੀਤ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਇਹ ਇੱਕ introductory conversation ਆ, ਹੋਰ ਕਿੰਨੇ layers ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ unpack ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। But ਜੇ ਸਾਡੇ viewers ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ social media pages ਨੂੰ follow ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ, ਤੁਸੀਂ information ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Facebook, just Sonia Joss, SONIAJHAS, or at Instagram, same thing, at Sonia Joss. And I mean, open inbox all the time to anybody who is dealing with, frankly, anything in your life, whether it's fertility or not. I know the journey can be really scary and hard and difficult, but as somebody who has had 2 very beautiful children out of the process, and has come out of it with a healthier marriage than when I went into it, and a healthier mindset. And really, I do believe that the journey was challenging, but meant to elevate sort of my understanding of myself and what I want out of life. I do believe it was all for a purpose. And so I feel very strongly that that is the way it is for everybody else as well. You just need to sort of stay the course and keep hope and keep doing the work, and you will get there.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for sharing your experience with us. ਸਾਡਾ ਆਖਰੀ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਇਹੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ infertility issues ਰਾਹੀਂ ਗੁਜ਼ਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ SOCH mental health ਨੂੰ ਵੀ reach out ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। We can get you connected to services in your area. ਸਾਡੀ website ਹੈਗੀ ਆ sochmentalhealth.com, and ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਹਫ਼ਤਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ information ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਜਾਰੀ ਰੱਖਾਂਗੇ on our social media platforms. Thank you so much for watching today. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।